Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know.
Hola, bon dia, alegria, Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show. Turns out a live stream and the podcast, of course. Don't forget the podcast. How are you doing today? I suspect him in some ways better than yesterday. At this time yesterday, we were recording and going about our business. And I find myself abluting. I'll make no finer point of it, but I was somewhat indisposed, not inconvenienced, but in the conveniences when I discovered that the power to our house had been withdrawn. There was an outage, a power cut here in Portugal. And I think there must have been around mid-morning, 11 o'clock perhaps, midday even. And we were set to go to Caldas de Rainha, a town nearby. And it became apparent that there was no electricity. Now, I'm quite used to this. We had an outage, I think, a couple of months ago where a local fuse on the street fried and cut the supply to 4 houses, myself and 3 neighbors. And occasionally we have outages, often to do with poor weather conditions. And also, somebody mentioned yesterday here in São Martinho de Porto, when the tourists are in town, that puts an additional burden on the supply, which sometimes causes a power cut. I prefer the phrase power cut is what I grew up with rather than outage, but I think outage is more generally known. And yes, this is a live stream, so get your thoughts in about what you suspect happened yesterday and your views on it more generally. I mean, my first and foremost view is what the hell happened? That is ridiculous. It's an embarrassment. It's embarrassing to this country and to the countries around it and to Europe and so-called advanced countries that they would find themselves in this position. Absolutely awful, terrible situation to be in from the point of view of a civilized society. But more on that, I'll come back to that in a little while. Good morning to you, Jackie and Owen, by the way. So I thought I'd walk the dogs in anticipation of maybe going to Caldas if the thing righted itself. And as I walked up the street, I could see more neighbors were on the street than normal, and more neighbors were on the street than is normal when there's a power cut or an outage. And I met a new neighbor, muito prazer, Nico, just up the road, who came out to say he couldn't work. We had a sort of broken language, English, Portuguese conversation, and he was out in what looked like his pajamas, and he was obviously working. That's the new uniform, isn't it, for working at home? But he came out, I can't work. I saw my other neighbor. Oh, you're out of power too. Just bon dia, just saying hi to people in the street, walk the dogs, came back. And it became apparent that none of the street had any power. Suspected then that none of the town had any power. And I got a call from Bobby O'Reilly asking me what was going on. I said, what's going on? What do you mean what's going on? The power's out, buddy. In Lisbon, I think he was in Lisbon, no traffic lights. And he thought if he called me, I would know. And thanks to him, I was alerted and I sparked up a quick live stream and tried to find out. And thanks to everybody who took part in that live stream yesterday. Lots of new people, lots of new subscribers to the channel. Thank you for subscribing if you're here again this morning. And some very interesting comments. The usual spectrum of comments. I'm getting used to this now. It's a very much a lockdown and pandemic thing. It's a political thing. Every issue now, you can is it 7 or 12 types of people? I'm going to go with 12, like a jury, like the astrological spectrum. Just 12 people seems to be a useful cross-representation of humanity. And, you go from the full-on conspiracy theorist to the government's got our back, don't worry, and everything in between, it would appear. And those aren't necessarily the ends of the spectrum. Let's call it a circle rather than a linear thing. But, everyone was represented in the live stream I did. This is not a time for joking, and then lots of people telling jokes. Just all the ways that humans are in their 12 archetypes, basically. So it was very interesting to do that. And then power dwindled gradually. It became impossible to do the live stream, and it became obvious, as Mrs. M was saying, look, we need you in the house. we need to plant food. And we went about our own archetypal behaviors, me and Mrs. M in the house. Very interesting. Kids had a great day, I have to say. And I think in any situation, the baseline situation in all of the ills that can strike humanity, and this is a sentiment from my favorite spiritual teacher Barry Long. Whatever happens, the children will play and the birds will sing, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. The children played and the birds sang. And then the humans, the older, the grown-up humans, were going about their business trying to make sense of a situation that they'd relied upon. But when you went to push the button, go to your phone, do anything you normally might do as your first thing in life, or living, I should call it, modern life, it wasn't there for us, was it? It wasn't there, and we had to adjust. I started chopping wood, and I cooked lunch over open flames. Yay, me! It was fascinating, and Mrs. M was, dusting down the seeds and getting some food growing. We were reminded of our vulnerability, weren't we? And that was on an individual basis. And have I got it in here? Did I call it or did I call it? I've been writing articles in the last couple of weeks on preparedness, a 72-hour challenge of some sort, and it looked like that yesterday, doesn't it? It was talk of, this isn't going to be sorted out for 3 days. Definitely not going to be sorted out in the next few hours. Maybe later on, maybe not. And I was talking about preparedness. It's almost as though I knew, and I promise you I didn't. I suspected, there was going to be something like this occurring, and that's a useful precaution for any human being, isn't it, in living in the sort of society we do. But yes, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I think I wrote an article of that name. And we live somewhere in between, don't we, with our hopes and dreams and fears and all the rest of the human condition. But I think I called it. And I think I'm on point and on topic in this recent time, in these last few weeks. So where was I? Yeah, me and Mrs. M, got the candles out, started doing things we felt we should have done weeks, months, possibly years ago. We're reminded of all of that. Thank you for all your comments that have come in, and definitely get around to those at some point. I just want to revisit the scene for anybody who wasn't there, who wants to know what happened here in Portugal, and I'll weave your comments in as part of that commentary. Perhaps when people see my clickbaity tile of what the hell happened, they might be interested to know what happened to us here in Portugal. Mrs. M said, how about we go to the beach? And I puffed up my chest and said, no, I will go to the town on my own, and you stay safe in the house here. I thought it was with the traffic lights out and what was going on around the country and in Spain. And then we were hearing in parts of France, possibly Germany, possibly Italy, possibly Switzerland. My neighbor said Switzerland as well, because everyone's phoning each other, aren't they, and finding out what's going on with their family and friends in nearby countries. I said, to the missus, you stay here, look after the children. I'll go and see what's going on in the town. So I got on my bicycle. I was like, at every riot, there's somebody too old to be on a small bicycle. I was like that guy. There's always somebody on a bike at a riot, isn't there? There wasn't a riot, but there was a bike. So I was on my bike-based recce. First place I came to was the local Intermarché. And I said to the lady outside the Intermarché, "Boa sorte, good luck." She laughed and said something, I think, along the lines of, "I hope we won't need good luck." But the Intermarché local shop was well and truly closed, and their petrol station as well. Barriers were down on both sides. You couldn't even use, the electronic signs plunged into darkness. They couldn't go in. And I think the other petrol station, although that looked open, and a petrol lorry, gas lorry, was just leaving, having refilled the place, I think, unless it was siphoning things out to take elsewhere. I don't know, but it looked like they just had a delivery. But the one of the pumps was out, one of the pumps looked like it was working, but the street lighting was out, as in the street sign was out in our other petrol station. So it looked like the gas stations were out as well. Over the road, however, the Loja Chinesa. This is encouraging, isn't it? It would appear that there are certain things that just remain standing in any human challenge, Chinese shops being one of them, and a rather poignant sign about the gaming event. On the left of that screen, you'll see the gaming event that's coming up in Outage Castle, which I've been to for the last couple of years with my kids. First time with my eldest, who loved it, and then we took the whole family last year, and it was great fun. They would be pretty screwed without any electricity, so hopefully They're probably thinking contingency. I wonder if the medieval castle, they've got the most modern generators and backup systems. But anyway, Chinese shops were open. The word started to go around on Facebook groups. Now, I've got to say, our Facebook group in San Martino de Porto, the Grapevine, you came into your own. You were awesome yesterday, and there was a really lovely message. There were many, actually. Nunu was popping up in there. He was popping up all over the place in different groups. But there was something about how lovely it was, how great it was that we have this group, and the spirit that came alive in the group. Oh, yeah. Also here, really love this group for what happened today, this convivial survival feeling and support. Yay! And Nunu says it was just a peak of emotion. As I say, everyone's got their view on this, but it was great to get the updates when the data, when mobile data would allow. And that's what seemed to be happening, because anything that depended directly on electricity, like your Wi-Fi router, those were down, weren't they? So we were down to 5G systems, and I could verify that for Mayo and Vodafone, and that's what I did my show on. Although it was getting very patchy, everybody was switching. Obviously, they weren't able to use their home-based fiber Wi-Fi broadband, so people were using their data. Then the message went round, okay, we should stay off the data, let the emergency services use that. And it was getting pretty patchy, and it felt like it was being switched on and off, or there was a massive demand, so it was becoming impossible to use. So it was lovely to see the messages that were emanating and how people were supporting each other on WhatsApp groups. Back to my tour around town on my bicycle, on my alternative powered transport system. Chinese shops then, oh, that's not a Chinese shop. There's the Chinese shop that remained open. I drove past a shop along the sea, near the seafront in San Martino de Porto, and there was a queue. And I was thinking, uh-oh, people do love a queue. And is it toilet paper? Is it condoms, which I think is the custom in France? Water. Lots of people are getting water. And you might argue that a bit late for that, but nonetheless, the pressure was being felt on supermarkets. Lee McGrady rushed to the shop, got himself some beer and crisps, his panic supplies. Well done, Lee. Just in time preparation there. And another one of their shops, the one that was open and allowing 2 people in and 2 people out, I think they had one up the road that was shut. The main supermarket was closed. One small neighborhood store was open. I'm guessing at this point where there were some cafes that were open. I didn't take any pictures where there were people, big groups of people. I didn't want to be sort of mawkish or morbid or intrusive in that way. But just to let you know that everywhere was in darkness in terms of how, most cafes and restaurants and shops have display lighting. And they were all in darkness. But they weren't all closed. Some were closed. Some were definitely for shadow. Some stayed open, and I think probably were running tabs or were dealing in cash. And I went to Palmeira, having passed a cash machine, actually. Isn't that a rare sight? There is a ATM. Oh, it says so. Looking for an ATM? Here's one. Cash machine, hole in the wall, whatever you call it, whatever your phrase for one of these is. And in darkness, never seen that before. And so I cycled along to Palmeira, past many cafes that were in darkness. Some were open. Gelato Mania, I don't know what's happened to their inventory. The big ice cream shop, that was closed. Other more local stores, mom and pop sort of operations were open. Chains were finished, weren't they? Anything belonging to a big chain, I think, was told to shut down by head office. And we were told airports were shut, trains were cancelled by this point. That was the news that was coming through. And I headed to Palmeira. Now, if you've had any prepping conversations, there's the concept of the waffle shop. Now, waffle shops, I believe, in the United States are places that stay open pretty much all the time. They don't close. The staff come in and out, but the doors stay open. And that's seen as a useful place to gather in an emergency if it's safe to do so. For me, it's Palmeira. I've got 2 cafes in mind, but Palmeira is quite useful because there's a lot of open space where people can congregate. And actually, we're going to have a review meeting. If you're in San Martino de Porto, we're meeting there at 10 this morning. That was my view from there yesterday. Excuse me just one moment. Just leaving you there to enjoy the view. Kids were playing. Teenage lads, obviously sent home from school, were playing football. The beach was pretty busy. We did what Portuguese people do, I think. We're learning what to do in emergency, which is to chill. I went and had a beer. I paid in cash. and drank my beer and reflected on my lot as I looked out across the bay. And I think other people had this plan as well. And actually, with the whole family, we went down later. It was my first plunge into the water. It was bloody freezing, but it was really nice to do that yesterday. Actually, we all went for we didn't all of us. Most of us had a paddle. We all had a paddle, and 3 of us had actually had a plunge into the sea yesterday. So that was really nice. It was a good plan. Mrs. M was right. We should have gone to the beach straight away, but I wanted to check out what was going on in town and make sure it was safe, which it was. And I had a beer then, and later on that same day, thank you very much, Hugh. This was delicious. This was delicious, my friend. Good to see you, Sarah and Dan, last night, who came round. And we were expecting to sit outside by about 9 or 10, I think it was 9, I think perhaps. And I was just taking the dogs out. We were winding down. We had seen Sarah and Dan earlier on and said, come round for a drink later. Didn't think they were coming, but then they turned up. I took the dogs around the block. And whilst I was out, taking the dogs out, I saw the most beautiful display of glowworms. What are they called? Fireflies, glowworms, fireflies are probably a better description. And I think given that nature was dark for a change and allowed to be so, it was a beautiful, I was just about to get my phone out to take a video of the fireflies to show everybody back at home who I expected by that time would have had the wine open and be surrounded by candles, and we were going to have a convivial gathering, a survivalist gathering, drinking wine in the Portuguese way and staying tranquilo and calma. That a light came on outside somebody's house, and then I heard a sort of little crackle, and the lights came on all around me. So by about 9, certainly by 9:30, 10 o'clock, the power had returned. And our neighbor, who is the president of the town, and I think an electrical engineer mentioned that it was coming towards us. This is how it happened. The network came back to life in chunks and stages, substations, I'm guessing. And the theories that had developed during the day were a fire in the Pyrenees, an oversupply which had fried some lines coming in over the Pyrenees as well to do with that fire. Obviously, Russia, Trump even, I think, maybe, I don't know. Anyone wants to blame Trump for everything was obviously hanging this on him as well. What else came up? Oh, insiders. Texts were going around. I've got friends inside EDP. It's a cyber attack. I still don't think we know, and I don't think we'll ever know. That's the way with these things, isn't it? That's the way of big things. You never really know. It just wallows in the whole the realm of what you might call conspiracy theories. Then people get criticized for being conspiracy theorists because nothing moves on with something useful and tangible. Or maybe it never will. I mean, maybe no one's ever going to be satisfied anyway, and they've all got banging on about their own agendas, and that's why we never get anywhere with these things. And great outpourings of humor and news. This was one screenshot. According to eNet, SIC was reporting this, one of the Portuguese channels. The interruption was due to a problem in the European electricity network, which as a consequence affected the national grid. The apagão, there's your vocabulary, apagão, power cut in Portuguese, or outage, apagão, affecting Portugal, Spain, and other European countries. So that seemed to be one of the strongest theories, as well as the cyber attack. And then I guess if people didn't get the answer they wanted, they could always revert to the conspiracy theory idea, could they not? That if it wasn't the thing that they thought it should be, a cyber attack or Russia or whatever, it's like, well, they're keeping that from us. But we'll see. It's early days yet, isn't it? I think there are more immediate and more practical matters to address. Although you could argue the cause is a pretty serious thing to address at the moment. For me, how we found ourselves in such a position of vulnerability is the big problem. Whoever done it will be talked about, I'm sure. But the fact that we could be in that position and be so vulnerable as a society, I just thought was outrageous. Outage. We put the outage in outrageous. It's unreal, unbelievable, unimaginable that we would find ourselves in a whole country outage. Who thought that might be a good idea? How are we sleeping at night knowing that that's what's going on? It's absolutely ridiculous. And so more footage and things to share with you. Thank you, Pam. And this is what I was asking for, is people to send in not only their funny memes, and their blessings and so on. We want those for sure. But these are very useful images, aren't they? Thanks, Pam. You're not sure how the shop had power. A generator, I suspect. Some shops had generators. Some restaurants did for sure. And that's a good precaution if you've got a freezer full of stuff, isn't it? And I know the Portuguese people were helping out. Wherever there was the fear of beer or ice cream spoiling, people rushed to the cafes to help consume such perishable products. So thanks for that, Pam. Hospital lit, excellent. Good to know that that's what happens. And a shop that was lit, presumably with a generator there. Thank you, Pam, for that. And the humor, of course. We had this. If you're in Portugal or Spain and don't have electricity, try this. I don't know if anybody did try that, but that's amazing, isn't it? Is that one of Nikola Tesla's inventions or theories brought to life there? So make sure you've got one of those standing by, and you'll end up with what looks like a virtual loop and eternal supply of electricity. Don't know why I didn't think of trying that. Thank you, Johnny Cocktail. Nationwide power outage occurring in Portugal. Good thing I have these handy containers to fill with drinking water. I suspect that's the first time they've ever seen drinking water. Johnny Cocktail right there. Cocktail prepper. Looking forward to filming with you soon here in Portugal. And the theories, of course. The new electrician who started work in the Iberian Peninsula yesterday, busy testing the system. AI, I suspect, right there. Any other photos you've got for me, do send them in. I'm just having a look at what you've got here. Renewable power on the... hold on a minute. So this is an interesting one as well. Yeah, turbines were at a standstill, which surprised some people. Portugal, the country that doesn't need the grid, because sometimes it's completely off-grid, wasn't yesterday for some reason. What's all that about? Bon dia to you, T-Duck. Thank you. Oh, Mel, that's nice. Thank you very much. Some cooking solutions. Thank you for all your pictures. These are brilliant that are coming in. Bob, oh, you had a great time. Fantastic, Viv. Cooking on the churrasquera. Yes, a lot of people went to their... Oh, I was shamed yesterday. My kids went out in the garden and were like, what's that smell? Is that you cooking, Dad? No, I'd made pasta and ramen in fire-powered boiling water. However, my neighbors out-alpha mailed me by sparking up their barbecues. And my two lads were like, meat. Is that us? No, sorry, kids. That was not me. Oh, fantastic. Loads of comments coming in. Thanks as well. Come back to those. And we'll come back to the wonderful climax in Lisbon of when the power finally came on. Oh, it was like the pandemic days when people stood on their steps and cheered. So some of that to come as well. So there you go. There's somebody's cooking device there. That's good to have. That's very good to have. And that's quite a big hob on top of that. That you can't get more basic. That's worth having, isn't it? That's worth having and ready to roll. Churrasqueras all over the place in many back gardens here in Portugal as well. Well done, Viv, who fired up a chicken soup, I think. Very good. Bob, I think well provisioned on the wood there as well. Excellent. Good prepping there. What's this? Spain hits first week there of 100% renewable power on national grid. Were they boasting about that earlier in the week? So they all went green on April the 22nd, and it's now April 29th, and most of Spain and some of Europe have had massive blackouts. Yeah! Right? What's that about? Honestly, this is why we shouldn't have found ourselves in this position, right? If we're crowing about all this off-grid corporate technology we've got, which we never seem to see the value of, okay? So we're off-grid, and we're not using fire and coal and horrid, nasty things. We're heading towards net zero and 2030, whatever it's called. Why, on the one hand, aren't bills coming down if we found better ways to generate power? Why isn't that being shared with the consumer? And I know this is rhetorical. I know the answer to these questions. I am interested in your answers too, and we will get to your comments. Why, on the one hand, are we not seeing reductions in bills if it's so easy to generate power and a whole country's doing it? And then why, when we really need it on a day like yesterday, was it not there to kick in and help us? Now, I know that's very simplistic. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. Well, forgive me. You might be forgiven for thinking it should work like that in an advanced society. It was embarrassing to Portugal yesterday, I'll be honest. And for anyone who's going to, like, if anyone's saying, well, if you don't like it in Portugal, get back to England. It's just as bad. It's just as bad. And if any Portuguese people are watching and they're thinking I'm criticizing your country and your culture, I am not. I am criticizing your government, and you should be too, quite frankly. Okay, so we can have some solidarity on this. It's not you. You don't need to kick the expat who's pointing this out, the foreigner, the immigrant who's pointing this out. You should be having a word with your government about this, quite frankly. Okay, so I think the more pictures will come in. Hopefully, thank you for sharing these with me. They're superb. Finally, then, later that same day in the city, we had some of this. Now, isn't that lovely? I'm very moved by that, just like I was when I saw the people whooping and hollering and cheering when they saw the dolphins coming out of the water at the zoo. There's something about a surge of human emotion, which is beautiful, that you can get carried away on. But that shouldn't have never happened in the first place. That's ridiculous. Of course, they were glad to see their power back. But how can a city like Lisbon, famous the world over, a city people want to come to, visit and live in, go lose its power like that, lose its traffic lights, lose everything in one just fell swoop like that? It's absolutely ridiculous. Right, let's go to the comments. Let's see what you think about this. Thank you very much, everybody, for being in this morning. There might be a few new names as well. Lots of people subscribed yesterday. Thank you, everybody who watched the live stream that I was able to improvise yesterday. Jackie, thank you for your comment this morning.